So let me ask you, have you ever felt so broken that you stopped feeling anything at all? Have you ever reached a point in your life where you felt numb, emotionally detached from everything around you? In today's world, we often find ourselves seeking solace in the idea of Stoic peace. This modern Stoicism promises us an existence free from emotional turmoil, a life where we can shut off our feelings and focus solely on what we can control. But what if that Stoic peace you've been chasing after isn't really peace at all? What if it's something else entirely, something far less innocent? The truth is, there's a fine line between achieving Stoic peace and falling into the trap of spiritual emptiness. And without a clear understanding of this distinction, you might find yourself lost in a world of numbness without realizing it. So here's the challenge. I want you to look deep within yourself and ask an important question. Are you embracing true Stoic peace, or have you shut down and disconnected from the depths of your being? It's a crucial distinction to make, because one leads to serenity, while the other can lead to spiritual ruin. You see, there are two ways people can experience this numbing state. The first one is the Stoic path, which is conscious. We choose to detach from emotions and take control of our lives, while the second way is the spiritual path, which is unconscious. Here, we avoid facing our pain and close ourselves off from experiencing any joy or pleasure. This kind of numbness happens automatically. It's not something you intentionally seek out. If you resonate with this description, you might be on the spiritual path of numbness rather than the Stoic one. So how can you tell the difference? Well, let me offer you two questions that can serve as guideposts on your journey. These questions will help you determine whether you're experiencing the tranquility of Stoic peace or the unsettling hollowness of spiritual emptiness. The first question is, am I calm or am I shutting down? True Stoic peace comes from within. It's a state of mind you cultivate through conscious effort and mindfulness. On the other hand, spiritual emptiness often manifests as a numbing response to protect you from emotional pain and vulnerability. So ask yourself, is this numbing a deliberate choice you've made to find inner strength and resilience, or is it a subconscious defense mechanism to avoid facing your emotions? The answer can provide clarity on which path you're following. Think about it. When you're on the Stoic path, you're actively practicing self-awareness and emotional regulation. Your calmness is a result of intentionality and self-discipline. However, when you're on the spiritual path, your numbness might be triggered by unresolved emotional wounds or a fear of confronting your true self. It's like a shield that goes up unconsciously to block you from feeling any pain or discomfort. Let me illustrate this concept with a simple example. Imagine you've experienced a significant loss or a deep betrayal. Your initial reaction might be overwhelming grief, anger, or despair. But what do you do next? Some people on the Stoic path will acknowledge their emotions, allowing themselves to feel the pain and process the experience. In contrast, others might retreat into themselves, unconsciously shutting off their emotions to cope with the trauma. One response is rooted in awareness and intention, while the other is driven by a need to escape the pain. But the questions don't end there. There's one more critical question you must ask yourself to truly understand your current state. The second question is, am I above emotions, or am I avoiding intimacy, risk, and faith? Being above emotions is a characteristic of the Stoic path. By practicing Stoicism, you learn to observe your emotions without judgment and recognize that they don't define your essence. You understand that you have the power to choose how you react to external circumstances. On the other hand, avoiding intimacy, risk, and faith is a sign of the spiritual path of numbness. This avoidance stems from a deep-seated fear of vulnerability and the potential for emotional pain. Think about it. When you're on the Stoic path, you're not suppressing your emotions. Instead, you're acknowledging them and choosing which ones to engage with. You don't shy away from intimacy, risk, or faith. In fact, you often seek them out, knowing that they can lead to personal growth and fulfillment. But when you're on the spiritual path of numbness, you might find yourself withdrawing from meaningful connections, shying away from challenges, and avoiding situations where you could experience deep emotions. It's like building walls around your heart to protect yourself from getting hurt. But why would anyone voluntarily choose to walk this path? The answer lies in the human tendency to fear what we don't understand. The uncertainty of emotions, the potential for heartbreak, and the risks involved in pursuing our dreams can be terrifying. So it's easier to retreat into a numb existence where we don't have to confront these fears directly. Now let me share a personal story that has impacted my journey in a profound way. Early in my life, I remember thinking that showing emotions was a sign of weakness. I wanted to be seen as strong and in control all the time, never letting anyone see my vulnerabilities. So I built up a wall around myself and shut off my emotions, convincing myself that I didn't need them. But over time, I realized that this was taking a toll on my relationships and my overall well-being. I started to feel disconnected from myself and those around me. My life lacked genuine connection, warmth, and the richness that comes from embracing the full spectrum of human emotion. It was only when I started to question my numbness that I began to heal. I sought out therapy and spiritual guidance to help me understand my emotions and develop healthy coping mechanisms. Through this journey, I learned that it's okay to feel pain and sadness, just as it's okay to experience joy and happiness. Embracing my emotions, including the uncomfortable ones, allowed me to become more authentic, compassionate, and connected to myself and others. I discovered that true strength lies not in suppressing our emotions, but in acknowledging and integrating them into our lives. I invite you to reflect on your own experiences and consider whether you might be on a similar path. Have you ever felt the need to withdraw from the world and shut off your emotions? What has driven you to seek solace in solitude and detachment? By honestly examining our motivations and the impact of our choices, we can work towards healing and finding our way back to a life filled with genuine connection and emotional depth. And let's not forget that on the spiritual path of numbness, there's no life, no light, no growth. It's a place where you stop caring about anything and even neglect basic necessities like hygiene. It's a dark and lonely place that can feel like a dead end. But I'm here to tell you that there is hope. Even if you feel completely numb, there's still a chance for you to turn things around. You see, when you reach that point of numbness, when you no longer feel anything, it's like you've given up on life itself. And that can be very dangerous. But I believe that there's always a spark of life left inside you. It might be faint, but it's still there. And that spark can be reignited if you're willing to put in the work. The key is to reconnect with your soul, to ask it where you are and what you need to get back on the path of life. But remember, when you're in that state of numbness, it's easy to lose hope and feel like there's no point in trying. You might think that you're too far gone, that there's no way out of the darkness. But I want you to hear me when I say this. God doesn't fear your numbness. He doesn't run away from it. In fact, He meets you right there in the darkness. He embraces you, comforts you, and reminds you that you are not alone. Don't let this feeling of numbness consume you. Don't let it define who you are or dictate your future. Reach out for help, seek support, and never give up on yourself. The first step towards recovery is acknowledging that you need help. It's okay to admit that you're struggling. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Reach out to friends, family, therapists, or spiritual advisors. Share your experiences and let them help you carry the burden. Remember, you are not defined by your numbness. You are so much more than this temporary state. You are a child of God with infinite potential. Believe me, I know how challenging it can be to break free from this cycle of numbness, but it is possible. With determination, self-compassion, and the support of those around you, you can emerge from this darkness stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. Embrace the journey. Celebrate the small victories and never lose sight of the beautiful life that awaits you. I leave you with this final thought. Peace is not the absence of feeling. It's the presence of wholeness. So when numbness hits, don't just analyze it. Ask your soul, where am I? And He will guide you back to the warmth, love, and light that make life worth living. You're not angry, you're not sad, you're not excited, you're not even bored. You're just kind of there, which is worse than any of those states, right? It's when you feel nothing. When you feel nothing, you think everything's okay, but internally, your soul is screaming. What do you do when you feel numb? How do you know if you've reached the Stoic ideal of peace, or if something inside you is dying? In this video, we're going to look at what to do when you feel numb. Now, most people would say that feeling numb is actually a good thing. After all, we live in a world that celebrates the power of positivity, right? Positive thinking, Positive vibes only, they say. And so whenever we talk about emotions, most people assume that we should always want to feel positive emotions like joy and excitement and happiness. But I'm not talking about that kind of numbness. I'm talking about a different kind of numbness, one that you feel deep inside, a numbness that signals that something is wrong. Let me show you what I mean by sharing two stories. The first story is the story of a master swordsman. He had dedicated his life to perfecting his craft. For years and years he trained rigorously, honing his skills and passing down his knowledge to eager students. But as the years went by, his students began to notice something strange about their master. His movements were becoming slower and less precise. His eyes were clouded with a deep sadness, and his spirit seemed broken. And so his worried students went to him and asked, "Master, what is troubling you? Your mind is far away. Your hands are shaking. Are you sick?" And the master looked at them and replied, "No, my body is healthy, but my heart is heavy because my sword has grown cold." You see, he had loved fencing more than anything else in the world. But as he grew older, he put down his sword and took up farming tools instead. He tried to find peace in planting rice, but his soul was restless. So he knew deep down that no matter how hard he tried, he could never be truly happy until he picked up his sword again. Now the second story is the story of a monk who lived deep in the quiet of a mountain monastery. He had devoted his life to prayer and solitude. But one day the monastery fell silent. Not a single sound could be heard. And when the abbot entered the room, he found the monk sitting motionless like a statue. He looked peaceful, yet there was something unsettling about his stillness. And so the abbot approached him and gently asked, "Brother, why have you fallen into such deep silence?" The monk slowly opened his eyes and replied, "I am still because my heart is listening." He explained that usually when he prayed, he would hear the voice of God speaking to him through the scriptures. But lately the voice had gone silent. Day after day he continued to pray, hoping that God would speak to him again. But the silence continued. And so now he waited patiently for God to speak to him once more. Both these men are at peace with their lot in life, yet both are deeply troubled by something. Both are going through their own personal crises. Now, how do we know whether or not we're in a similar situation where we need to take action? How do we know when we're numb because we've achieved inner peace and when we're numb because we've lost our passion or we've lost our faith? Well, let's start with what the Stoics would say. The Stoics believed that the key to happiness and success lay in controlling our emotions. They taught that we should be indifferent to things that are not in our control and that we should focus on what we can influence. Now, the Stoics weren't saying that we shouldn't have emotions. That's not what they meant by control. Instead, they meant that we should not be slaves to our emotions. They believed that true strength came from being able to choose how we react to events. Now, this is where the concept of numbness comes in. In Stoic philosophy, a numb person is someone who has achieved a state of tranquility called ataraxia. This means to be calm and still on the inside, even when the outside world is chaotic. It's like being in the eye of a storm. But the question is this numbness the same as the numbness that we're talking about here? Is this Stoic ideal of peace, or is your soul quietly starving? Well, the answer, I believe, lies in another Stoic teaching, namely that Stoicism does not kill the heart. Instead, it trains it. Think about it. If you were to detach yourself from everything and everyone and pretend that you don't care about anything, what kind of person would you become? Well, you might become someone who doesn't cry when they see someone crying. You might become someone who doesn't laugh when they see someone laughing. You might become someone who doesn't feel anything. And that, my friends, is not the kind of person that the Stoics wanted you to become. See, the Stoics believed that the key to happiness lay in living a life of virtue and wisdom, not in suppressing your emotions. So then, is this numbness the same as the numbness that we're talking about here? Well, not really. The Stoic ideal of ataraxia is not a numbness that comes from disconnection. It comes from connection. It comes from being connected to yourself, to your values, to your purpose, and to the people around you. So if you feel numb, it's a sign that something is wrong. Your soul is trying to tell you that something is out of whack. But what could it be? Well, let me turn to another source of wisdom, namely the Bible. In the Bible, dryness is a warning sign. In the book of Psalms, the psalmist writes, "My soul thirsts for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water." Psalm 63:1. And in the book of Kings, the prophet Elijah, after defeating the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, feels so numb and hopeless that he wishes he could die. I have been zealous for the Lord God of hosts, for my fathers had no peace, for I have played the fool and have spoken on my own authority. Now therefore I pray, God, take my life from me, that I may go before you peacefully. 1 Kings 19:18. Now, these are examples of spiritual numbness. This is not peace that they feel. Instead, they feel disconnected from God. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, what does this have to do with me? I'm not a biblical scholar. I don't read the Bible every day. What does this have to do with me? And here's what it has to do with you. You see, sometimes when we feel numb, it's because God's presence feels absent. When we feel disconnected from everything and everyone around us, it's because we feel disconnected from God. But this isn't because God has abandoned us. Quite the opposite. When we feel numb, it's often a sign that we need to wake up and pay attention. It's a sign that we need to reconnect with God. Now, this might mean spending more time in prayer or meditation or in nature. It might mean spending more time with loved ones or engaging with our community or reaching out to those who are hurting. The point is, when we feel numb, we need to ask ourselves, what is my soul trying to tell me? Is there something in my life that needs to be fixed? And remember, brothers and sisters, when you feel numb, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that your soul is trying to connect with you, trying to guide you back to the path of meaning and purpose. So don't ignore it. Embrace it. Use it as an opportunity to grow and to deepen your connection with yourself, with others, and with God.